Yay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We have some international telephone calling difficulties, but we were able to sort it. And so we're so glad that you're here to join us today for this presentation. Thank you all so much for being here and for your time. On behalf of the California Labor Lab and NIOSH Center of Excellence for Total Worker Health, it's our pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. And just a few housekeeping things. You are going to be muted during the presentation. So if you'd like to ask a question, please enter it into the Q&A, and we'll do our best to save a little time at the end of the presentation to address as many questions as possible. This presentation is being recorded and will be made available on the California Labor Lab and Center for Occupational and Environmental Health YouTube page in the next 5 business days. And if you logged in with your registration email for the full live presentation today, you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to an evaluation form that will qualify you for a certificate of completion with 1 continuing education contact hour. Once the evaluation is completed, you'll be able to access and print your certificate. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator today.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Alicia LaFrance. I am the coordinator of the California Labor Lab, and it is a real pleasure to introduce Dr. Christina Banks. And as this audience may know, Dr. Banks has been a leading member of the California Labor Lab, and she's made tremendous contributions to our work. In her role as the Labor Lab's outreach director, she's really expanded our vision and our network, and she's helped us translate research beyond the halls of academia and into workers' lives. And Dr. Banks is also the director of the Interdisciplinary Center for Healthy Workplaces at UC Berkeley. And while she has her PhD in industrial organizational psychology, you will soon hear about how she uses her deep experience in the field to now collaborate with a broad group of partners. She's deeply driven by a mission to bring about healthy workplaces for as many as she can. And without further ado, I'm turning over the floor to Dr. Christina Banks.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here finally, and I greatly apologize for a glitchy start to this. I won't even go into it. Anyway, I'm so glad you can join us, and I am going to ask Michelle to advance my slides because I don't see any share with my computer, and so I'm a little bit afraid to try anything right now. So if Michelle is ready, we'll go to our first slide.
Just a moment, Dr. Banks. I just need to open the presentation.
Okay, well, let me start by talking about what this is all about. So 3 years ago, I had a conversation with a colleague of mine who's in corporate real estate, and he's a workplace strategist. And it was a long conversation about everything that's wrong with what's going on. And so we decided at that moment that we were going to do something about it. And so we started what we're calling the Work Futures Initiative, which I'll describe more about it in a minute. But the whole idea is that we need to completely rethink how we spend our work lives and how business operates so that we can allow both businesses to achieve their goals and for people to thrive at work and to be able to operate under the changed world that we're in and to make it win for everyone. So believe it or not, I'm going to tell you about how we're trying to do this. And it's been a 3-year process so far, and it'll probably be a couple more years, but we hope to get out the material to everyone so they can start testing it. So my topic is our potential future work life, a presentation of the Work Futures Initiative results. So we actually have some results to share. So if you don't mind advancing, we'll quickly go to the next slide. It's just to tell you that we've pulled funding for this from multiple places, including the California Labor Laboratory, and we're very happy that they decided to support us in this. Next slide. And this is what I'm going to talk about, and hopefully you'll get excited by what I'm presenting. I'm going to give you a brief review of the Work Futures Initiative, our aims, and the 3 phases. And what's important about that is that it's a 3-phase process that's going to get us from where we are in our current state to hopefully a future better state of work, worker experience, and workplaces. We start with the sandbox, which is a data collection methodology where we collected some amazing information from an interdisciplinary array of professionals from multiple disciplines. Then I'll go into the mixer, which is where we pull together all this information that we gathered from people, and we try to make sense of it. We have as an aim to create a new vision and framework for the future, and I'll be sharing that with you in great detail. Next, we'll talk about what we determined at the mixer in terms of what problems we need to fix and then how to fix them, and how we are envisioning the future starting with 2031. And then I'll go into the mixer implications for organizations and society and tell you about the 3rd phase of the Work Futures Initiative, the summit. Next slide. Okay, let me tell you about the Work Futures. So the aim is to create a new vision and framework for work, worker experience, and workplaces to promote both business success and worker health, safety, well-being, and productivity. We want to also close the gap between business leaders' understanding of business success and the under-recognized value of healthy workers and the potential of their productivity. The reason why that is so important, in addition to rethinking what our work life should be like, is that it is the lack of understanding that the pathway to business success is through healthy, safe, and thriving workers. For some reason, there seems to be a sense of competition between the business making money or focused on delivery of services and people's health, safety, and well-being. It's not a competition at all. They're completely compatible, but we've got to show that to business leaders so they make the commitments that need to be made and investments in people so that people can do their best work and the business can continue to thrive, as well as people thriving in their health and well-being. So those are our project aims. As I said, there are 3 phases: the sandbox, the mixer, and the summit. Next slide. So this is a graphic representation of the 3 phases. The sandbox, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, we collected 163 participants across a wide array of occupational and stakeholder groups across the nation, and we did that in a set of 16 different sandboxes. We took what people said in those sandboxes and we collected them in a book, and the book is called Unfiltered Voices, a reveal of our current and future work life. Now, what's unusual about this book is it's just quotes. It's what they actually said. And I'll tell you more about that and why it's important. But the significance of this methodology is we're getting ground level information undirected by research questions or by probing to hear what their work experience and what their work life experience is like. So you will see pretty quick the importance of collecting that kind of information. And then that is going to be the primary data source for our mixer. And I'll tell you how we did that in just a minute. But again, the purpose of the mixer is to bring another group of professionals who are very senior in their careers and from, again, another wide array of occupational groups and stakeholder groups, and they knit it together. We call them knitters. I know it's kind of funny, these terms, but they work. And then finally, the summit, which is going to happen probably mid-2027, where we're going to take the vision and framework and transition it to a set of tools and change products to actually do the delivery of that vision and implement it in organizations. Next slide. Okay, let me tell you about the sandbox. The true meaning of a sandbox is gathering people together from the same occupational group or stakeholder group, and we have them talk to each other. And they talk to each other without us interfering with the conversation. So in this sense, we personally invited, we didn't have a big call and say, anybody come down here. Now, these were highly selected people in terms of certain characteristics. They were senior, seasoned, thoughtful, reflective people who were not trying to drive a certain agenda and who aren't trying to sell something, but they are people in their field who have the knowledge and the experience to be able to reflect what's going on. So we ended up recruiting between 6 and 16 professionals per sandbox for the same occupational and stakeholder group. The reason why there's a difference between 6 and 16 is that some of the groups were hard to recruit. And it was volunteer. It was a virtual 2-hour, lightly facilitated discussion with their peers. And so it's a peer-to-peer discussion. And then we recorded all of the discussion, everything they said, and we removed all the identities attached to the statements. And so what you have is the pure communication of what they thought, what were the ideas they had, the issues that they had, the predictions that they had about the future. And it's really deep, wonderful data. We also collected biographical information from them prior to the sandbox and distributed that to the people participating. So we didn't have to go through, why don't you introduce yourself to each other. It was, they already knew who was going to be there. And the really interesting part to this is that very few of them knew each other. So these were gatherings of people who never had a chance to talk to people at their level and to talk about the very things that they thought about that was essential to their satisfaction and their ability to be capable to handle the kinds of issues that were facing them in their work. And then we also, I also want to say that we cued them at the beginning to say, you know, talk to each other. Your discussion is critical. We want to hear what you think and to be generous with their sharing. Okay, next slide. Here are the groups of people that we brought together in the sandboxes. And I'm kind of wondering how you're reacting to this, because we didn't say, okay, let's do these 18 different occupational and stakeholder groups. We actually just kept adding groups to this with the hope that we could get a wide spectrum of opinion about how things were going. And if you look at this, it's pretty amazing that we managed to have these 2-hour unfacilitated discussions with people in each of these groups. Now, some of them have been surveyed and have reported a lot about their circumstances, but some we've never really heard from. For example, building owners, developers, and urban planners. You might think, why did we talk to these people? Well, these people have a lot on the line for people coming back to work. Their business could disappear overnight if people didn't come to work. I mean, I'm serious. And they're very threatened by the fact that COVID really tested the stability of their business. And so, you know, you're getting a lot of information from them in terms of mandates to return to work. But what about the technology people? Now, they've talked a lot, but we didn't want to talk to the people who developed the technology. We want to talk to the people who use the technology. And two different types of technology were tapped. One is the software, the infrastructure that they build, and the other is devices and sensors. They come at it from a very different angle, and I'm going to report to you some interesting things that we learned from them. We also asked artists, writers, and musicians. Why? I call them the invisible workforce because they work alone, they're gig workers, they're completely responsible for their own work, and they're gig workers, but that they're of a particular kind, and they have virtually no community that protects them. We talked to college student leaders, folks in universities and colleges and vocational schools and community colleges around the country. We have union leaders, not union reps, but union leaders who are concerned about strategy. We have CEOs. Believe it or not, we got some CEOs to talk to us, and business executives who have very interesting things to say about how, what their leadership models are all about, or more precisely, how the business models and the leadership models are failing them. And investors, okay, why would we talk to investors? We talk to investors because they're creating the work that we're going to do in the future. They're the people pouring money into small businesses and startups, which are going to, presumably, if they're going to make it, they're going to shape the future of work. So we need to understand where they're coming from and what are they thinking and what are they investing in. Government officials, of course, is a natural. We want to know about enforcement and regulation and public policy. So I'm taking a long time to go over who participated because we learned some pretty interesting things from everyone. Next slide. Okay, so the first thing we did after we recorded everyone and organized the quotes, so we took out the ands and the ums, so it actually is readable quotes, but we organized them by theme. Now, this is not an interpretation of what they said. These are just the topics that came up. And so we found that there are about 12 different themes here, and you can look at the range of themes that were brought up. And again, I'm going to remind you that this wasn't from our point of view what we wanted to hear. It's what they talked about naturally. So just think about it in terms of the topics. And what I want to emphasize here is not only can you take a sandbox, say, of union leaders, and you'll see what subset of these themes came up in their sandbox through their peer-to-peer discussions, but you can also trace a theme across the sandboxes. Like, what did people say about AI? What did everybody say about collaboration and organization design? and so on. So you can track across all of these groups, and you can also track across a group. It's really cool because, again, we found out some pretty interesting things. Next slide. So I'm going to share some of those things that we've learned, but of course I cannot cover a 400-page book in this webinar. So I'm going to pull out the main things that came through that really impressed us. And so common across these different occupational and stakeholder groups are the following. The lack of skills and training to deal with the problems today was talked about almost universally. And that's because every group said this is a time of chaos. This is a time that we have no models that work, that the way we have tried to manage problems with business and with all sorts of aspects of organizational functioning, it just doesn't fit where we are today. And so this particularly came up with the CHROs, the Chief Human Resource Officers, senior HR people, but guess who else? The CEOs. The CEOs said, we don't know how to deal with remote and hybrid designs. We don't know how to deal with our real estate. We don't know, how to approach people to have the kind of culture we need to have in order to be a cohesive, productive group. It's pretty amazing. So major finding, skills and training are absent to deal with problems today. Similarly, the lack of models to follow. And the CHROs and the HR managers said, the business leaders are telling us, do this, get everybody back. And so then they try to work with the workforce to try to get everybody back, and then they get the huge pushback and people leaving and all that. And then the leader said, nope, just let them do their thing. And it's just this whipsaw that they recorded. And so they really don't know what to do. It's really interesting. Obviously, remote work and hybrid work was a lightning rod for everybody. So was AI and technology. The uncertainty that this has introduced into their work life is immense. And that's because, first of all, there's a lot of uncertainty about what it is and how it's going to be useful or not useful. But it keeps changing so fast they don't even know what's coming. Not surprisingly, the lack of social cohesion and connection and trust was mentioned by everyone. And then finally, again, I started out with, the competition between profit and investment in people and supporting their health, safety, and well-being. And many groups said there's a big disconnect between what business wants and what people want. That there seems to be a big difference, perception, though it shouldn't hold, but there's a big perception of a disconnect between those two things. Now I want to talk about some of the unique things here, and that is, might be the group that we talked to that it was only a couple of groups that wanted to talk about low-wage workers, essential workers, and how they're different from non-essential workers, and how all the emphasis seems to be on the non-essential professional rank people. And they also talked a lot about the lack of systemic mental and physical health solutions. The key word here is systemic, which means a an organization-wide solution as opposed to spot solutions or solutions that are put on individuals to take care of their own mental and physical health. We know about that. The next one really caught me by surprise. It was mentioned by occupational medicine professionals who talked about the antimicrobial resistance threat. It's perceived as a slow-moving catastrophe in the sense that when we run out of antibiotics and we run out of antivirals, which we're running out of them, the occupational med doctor said workplaces will be one of the most dangerous places to be. So if we thought COVID was bad and was dangerous, and we didn't want to go there and get contaminated or to get sick, what we have is a situation teeing up where the air will be full of pathogens, and small scratches that you can't treat with an antibiotic cream may turn into sepsis, and you know where that leads. So we have to really think about how to make workplaces safe again, both on surfaces and in the air. And guess what? There are solutions, but the businesses don't want to pay for it. So we've really got to think about that. And then the last one is the destruction of legal protections and enforcement. We know that. But the more people who are forced to do gig work because they lose their jobs, or they can't find a job, or they're replaced by automation, we're going to have fewer and fewer protections for people in the future. Next slide. Okay, so we learned a bunch. We put it all in this book. And by the way, you can get a copy of that book if you let me know that you're interested. All I need is your name and address, and we'll mail you a book, because we think it's so important that you be informed about what all these different groups are thinking about as a practitioner, as a researcher, as a person in the workforce thinking about what they're saying and how you can help your organization respond. Whatever point of view you have, it will be useful. Just let me know. So now the second phase is, what does this all mean? How do we utilize this information so we can come up with a vision and a framework to address the problems that were brought up in the sandbox? Because these are not trivial problems. There's many more things that were said. I'm just selecting a few of them. So the goal here was to utilize the sandbox information to the extent possible in identifying the most important problems to address in the new vision. So basically, the book, the sandbox book, is a compendium of all the problems. And how do we deal with all the problems? So we brought a bunch of people together to talk about what they read in the sandbox, what they identified as problems to be solved, prioritizing those problems to be solved, and then fashioning a new vision and framework that will help us get down the road of a more holistic, systemic, and integrated business operation to support workers in all parts of the organization. And most importantly, to have a new concept of business operations and work processes that closes the gap between business leaders' priorities and workers' needs for satisfaction, so that both can survive. Okay, next slide. So the Mixer was a 3-day in-person workshop held at UC Berkeley, Haas School of Business. They were very kind to us to give us the space. We had about 30 academics and practitioners participate in a sequence of group discussions and work activities designed to integrate information from the sandboxes into the design of a new vision and framework for work life. The participants included executives, consultants, professors, internal advisors, and an attorney covering 15 different disciplines. All the participants were given pre-Mixer assignments, basically read the book and tell us what you pulled out of it in terms of what we need to fix and where were opportunities for change. And a select group of them who are representing a specific discipline had to create a brief that identifies how their discipline or their subject matter can play an important part in the new vision. Okay, next slide. By the way, thank you for moving the slides. Okay, so we had roles for people to play at the Mixer. I mentioned the word knitters a minute ago. Knitters were people who were specifically identified, again, through referral and research, combing the internet and other sources. These are people who know how to integrate diverse sets of information. They're boundary spanners. They've had a wide career across fields of study, and they know how to put things together. They're good at pattern recognition. We had 10 of those people. We also invited 15 different people who represented a specific subject matter. And I will tell you what these the different subject matters were. We had healthcare business, government agencies, wellness and well-being consulting. We had HR, we had corporate real estate, employment law, psychology, ergonomics, public policy, environmental design, occupational medicine, unions, economics, arts and music, and executive officers. These were all SMEs. The idea was the knitters would do the pattern recognition and try to shape what this new vision is, and then they would ask the subject matter experts to help build technical information, build depth to whatever they were trying to put together. They acted kind of like a library. So when they wanted to know, well, how do we do this, or how has this been successful, they were there on the spot to help with that. We also had people we called strategic producers who observed and formulated what kinds of things needed to be created to advance the change. So they looked at, where the opportunities were, and their job was to figure out, how to make this change. We also had people representing a visionary council, really senior people, who had as an assignment to say, how would this be received by business? How would this be received by influencers? What works, what doesn't work? We also had a 17-member leadership team who has been working with us. Some have been working with us for 3 years on this on a voluntary basis. And then we also hired a skilled facilitator, and a handful of us also did facilitation. Next slide. Really trying to get to what we found, but before that, let me tell you what the format was. In person, full days, highly prepared, highly facilitated. First day, what problems should we solve? End of the day was through a lot of different group discussions and questions that had to be answered and so on. They had to come up with the problem statements to focus on during the visioning process. And I'll share you what they came up with. Day 2 was to imagine the future. 2031. What does 2031 look like? Let's reimagine what it looks like. And they did a really cool exercise where they got into groups and actually put together a newspaper with headlines and articles. Now, they didn't write the articles, but they wrote what they want to be able to see in a newspaper that would bring to life all the things that they think work life ought to be in 2031, hopefully. And then day 3 was to reimagine the work and create a new vision, actual statement based on the work they did on day 2, which I'll tell you what they came up with, and then start building the transitions from the current state to the future desired state. Okay. So let me tell you what the problem statements were, and I'm sure this will make sense to you. Is it possible to move to the next slide? Vicky. Okay. Here were the problem statements. So out of all the things that they discussed and brought in from their various perspectives, it was these problem statements. The human side of work is not being prioritized. I wish I could see you raising your hand and saying, I agree with that. Technology is moving faster than people and organizations can adapt. The social compact around work is breaking down. That means whatever contract we had between employees and employers, what is it? There's a lot of lack of trust and a lack of commitment. Short-term thinking and disconnected decisions are driving how work gets shaped. And management systems are built for a kind of work that no longer exists. We mentioned this a little earlier. And that power, risk, and reward are unevenly shared. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And now the big reveal, next slide. This is the draft vision. Okay, disclaimer, it's a draft. Secondly, it's what they pulled together on the morning of the 3rd day rather than the end of the 2nd day. And they were trying to pull it all together in a way that made sense and could give direction to how this vision could be built out and how the transition could start to take shape. So here it is. They said, we envision a future where work is designed around people and worker input shapes the decisions that affect them. Guess what? That is a big difference. I don't know if you feel that, but this is a big difference in perspective. In this future, workers have stability, protection, prosperity, voice, and real opportunity. Technology is designed and audited to enhance worker well-being and strengthen people over their lifetimes, rather than diminish them. And when we talk about diminishing, it means, illness, injury, mental health issues. It doesn't work for one's personal life, etc. Risk, responsibility, and reward are aligned with how value is created. So workers are not asked to carry disproportionate risk while others capture the benefits. Success is measured not only by what gets produced, but by whether organizations and institutions cultivate flourishing, dignity, well-being, and long-term social value for workers, and those measures are tied to regulatory frameworks and accountability mechanisms. Does this feel very different? I think it is. The future would provide mutual benefits to the worker and the organization. Okay, next slide. Now let's talk about attributes of this vision. Work is designed around people, not people shaped to fit work. Oh my God, that's so different. And that's because we need to put the people concerns, them at the center of work life. Not an afterthought, not an asset that gets put in and taken out for somebody else's purposes. We are not cans of soup on the shelf. We are actually people. And if you think about it, all commerce, this is soapbox, sorry, commerce and productivity is accomplished by people, by the workers. Nothing else, nothing can happen without the people at all levels of the organization, including those in the bottom rungs. So this is a turnaround from scientific management, which was created in 1911, which just focused on tasks and not people. And so now we want to focus on people and shape tasks around what people can do. We want workers to shape decisions that affect them. We want work life to be stable, and workers are protected and prosperous, and they have a voice and real opportunity, like the vision said. Technology is a big piece of this. Technology is allowed if it enhances workers' well-being. And that's a big statement. It's not just, are people happy? No. It's the whole constellation of emotions and satisfactions and competency and capability that workers bring to work, and technology enhances that. Risk, responsibility, and rewards are shared broadly and align with the value creation. Success is measured in new ways, as you can see, and that measures are tied to regulatory frameworks. It's kind of a restatement, but it's a sharpening of what our mixer participants said. Okay, next slide.
Dr. Banks, just a heads up. We've got 5 minutes left. We have 5 minutes.
Okay. I think I can do it. Okay, so I'm going to tell you 4 quick pillars underlying the vision statement. Thank you, Alicia. I appreciate that. These are the major pieces that have to be built out. The metrics, measure what matters for work and society. And we have some strategies connected to that. And I'm going to zip through this. Sorry, but you can all have the text-heavy presentation. Next slide. The other pillar, technology. Use technology to strengthen people, which is not to compensate for people, but strengthen people. Pillar 3, next slide. Work design and implementation. Design work around human and social value. It's going to take some work. And then the 4th pillar is accountability mechanisms. And this is so important. Next slide. Then this is so important because, first of all, you have to memorialize the value that workers create and also make that a central piece of recognition, reward, return, and respect and investment. I can't say it any better. It's rebalancing risk and reward. Okay, next one. Next slide. Okay, pathways. We need to change the way business operates and its organizational structure, and we want to change it in a particular way. We want to support how people have the ability and the motivation to be highly productive and to take away the disruptors. And some of the disruptors are just, frustrations, and you can't find the people you need, can't find the resources you need. You want to achieve, but you just don't have what you need in order to do that. We need to look at working conditions critically and see how we can enhance people's ability to do their best work and motivate their performance to a level of high satisfaction and with the care to ensure health, safety, and well-being, and maintain that over time. Okay, next slide. This is a principle that's well known, that performance is a function of ability times motivation. If either of those terms are low, you get low performance. So it's a good deal when the work environment, aka working conditions, enables a person to perform at their best. And you can, I'm sure, think about the things that disrupt your ability to get your work done and that undermines your motivation because of different working conditions and different aspects of your job that undermine it. Okay, next slide. I'm sorry, I have to zip through this. It's important that we build work around our basic human needs, and that's a whole talk by itself. So the thing is, we can enable people to have a highly satisfying work life, a highly productive work life, when it's around the kinds of structures and business operations that support it. Okay, next slide, and we're almost there. What are the vision? Yeah, am I done?
We are actually at time, and
Okay.
I know that there's so much more to share. This has been so rich. Um, Dr. Banks, I wanted to give you the opportunity to lead. I felt like that last slide was such a positive note, and I think people are hungry to find more information, and maybe we can do a part two of this. Maybe could you leave people with how can they follow this work and get a copy of your book?
Okay, so all you have to do is write me at cbanks@berkeley.edu. Tell me what you'd like. Everybody should have a copy of these slides. There's only like 2 or 3 slides left. Let me know what you want. I can send you a PDF copy of the Sandbox book, or you can have a physical copy. And the other thing is, join us. We're going to set up a new email group, and we'll keep you informed of our progress. And we really want you to be on board and help us bring this to fruition. So just let me know how you're responding to this and how you'd like to join us.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very much.
much. And thank you so much to our audience for your attention. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next webinar.